Alright, this is my idea for an Avengers Infinity War interactive dark ride. This interactive dark ride would be very similar to Men in Black Alien Attack at Universal Studios and Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin at the Magic Kingdom. So in case you don't know, both of these rides have guests going through a dark ride while also being equipped with guns that allow them to shoot targets throughout the ride and acquire points, trying to get as many points as they can in order to gain some sort of status at the end of the ride. That all being said, let's get straight to the ride. The queue for this ride would have guests entering into one of the Wakandan government buildings where they would meet T'Challa's sister, Shuri. Shuri would inform guests that Thanos has come to Earth looking to erase half of its population in order to quote-unquote save it. And in order to defeat him, the Avengers need our help. Since we aren't superheroes or anything like that, Shuri has created a vehicle using the Wakandan mineral of vibranium, thus giving these vehicles very similar properties to the Black Panther suit, which has the ability to take the kinetic energy of hits and bullets and whatnot and fire it back at an opponent when the suit wearer hits back. This will allow guests to stay mostly safe in the fight against Thanos and his army. Each vehicle fits 6 passengers, and each passenger is equipped with a gun that they can use to fight against Thanos' army. Each gun is modeled after a weapon that other Avengers use. On top of this, each of these guns have different abilities and are used in different ways, thus giving guests a different experience each time they ride and use a different gun. The first gun would be Bucky's machine gun, which would be a rapid-fire weapon that would also be equipped with a scope. The next gun would be Rocket Raccoon's gun that would have a charge to it, and the longer you held onto the charge and hit your shot, the more points you would get. The next passenger would actually get 2 guns, which would be Star-Lord's dual-wielding pistols. These obviously wouldn't shoot as fast as Bucky's machine gun, but because you're dual-wielding, it actually wouldn't be too bad of an option. The next gun would be modeled after Falcon and would require 2 hands and would be a turret-style weapon that would have wings attached to it, so you know it's Falcon's. Of course, this would be the ultimate rapid-fire weapon, but it'd be pretty inaccurate and wouldn't have a scope like Bucky's. The next gun would be Iron Man's repulsor, which guests would put their actual arm into and fire it that way. It'd be very similar to Rocket Raccoon's gun in the case that it's a charge weapon that would earn you more points the longer you charge the shot. The final gun would be War Machine's Death Machine style machine gun that would be pretty insane as far as rapid fire goes, the highest, definitely a bit more than Falcon's. But unlike Falcon's, you wouldn't need 2 hands to operate this one, as it'd be very similar to Iron Man's repulsor, where you could just put your arm in there and use the machine gun the same way that you use Iron Man's repulsor. Also, all of these guns would have knockback on them, so when you're using a charge gun, the more you charge it, the more knockback you get for each shot. And of course, for a rapid fire weapon, the longer you're holding onto the trigger, the more you're going to get pushed back. Another aspect to the shooting of this, which I really want this to be like a competitive shooter. Like, I don't want this to just be like casual fun. Like, I want there to be some strategy behind this whole shooting game, whereas in most rides, it's just pretty casual, like whatever. This, I want there to be some strategy behind it and more competition surrounding the game aspect of the ride. Another aspect to the shooting in this ride would be that the longer you take between shots, the more this purple bar on the side of your gun goes up. This purple bar represents the amount of kinetic energy that the vehicle has taken in from hits it's received. So, the more you let this bar fill up, the more damage you would end up dealing, thus more points you would end up getting for each hit when the bar is high. Of course, when you take a shot when your bar is high, it will go down as more shots you take. So after all of this shooting aspect of the game has been explained to you, you would then enter one of 2 boarding stations. One would be Captain America's boarding station, and the other one would be Iron Man's boarding station, as they still are split from the events of Civil War. Of course, when you go to Iron Man's boarding station, Iron Man wouldn't actually be there as he's stuck on Titan right now. So he'd be talking to you through one of his Iron Man suits like he does in Spider-Man Homecoming. As for the Captain America boarding station, Captain America would actually be there, welcoming you onto the ride, explaining the mission. He would also be there with Shuri, who is working on fixing Vision and trying to get the Mind Stone out of his head. Once exiting the boarding station, guests would be thrown straight into the fight of Wakanda. They would start by just shooting regular grunts of the alien army, all of which would have blue targets on them in some way, shape, or form that guests could shoot at to earn points. Just like any other interactive dark ride with the shooting aspect, some aliens will be worth more points than others as they're in harder to reach or harder to shoot places. Eventually, guests would run to a giant animatronic of Black Dwarf. He would roar at the guests and then throw down his massive hammer, hitting their cart and spinning it around in circles. Guests would then enter into another straightaway shooting area, except this time they'd be fighting alongside Black Panther, Okoye, and Black Widow. After going through this section of the ride for a little bit, guests would then eventually be put in front of a screen where Black Dwarf and the Hulkbuster, obviously controlled by Bruce Banner, would be going at it in a big fight until eventually the Hulkbuster throws Black Dwarf on top of our cart, once again spinning us around to the next part of the track. Here we would once again be faced with another straightaway shooting area, except here Vision and Captain America would be fighting alongside of us against Corvus Glaive. It's also worth mentioning that in this part of the ride, you would earn more points for hitting Corvus Glaive as opposed to any of the other alien grunts. However, as we continue to travel down the track, we'd eventually come face to face with one of the saw blades that the aliens have roaming around the ground of Wakanda. However, right before it can mow us down, a red light covers the saws, stopping them in their tracks, and they are lifted up out of our way to reveal that it was actually Scarlet Witch who saved us and allowed us to move on with our fight. We then are placed in front of another screen where we are face to face with Proxima Midnight. Our cart stops in front of her as she pokes her metal rod right into our cart, making us stuck. As she laughs in our face, she's then hit with a red beam and thrown into the saw blades that Scarlet Witch had before, once again saving us. As we turn the next corner, Thor, Groot, and Rocket Raccoon arrive to join the fight. We then fight alongside them as well as Bucky, War Machine, and Falcon in another straightaway shooting scene. In this part of the ride, we would see many iconic scenes from the movies, such as Groot holding up all those aliens on one of his tree branches. Shooting one of those would, of course, give you extra points. And Bucky spinning around Rocket Raccoon to take out other aliens around them. As we turn the next corner, however, Thanos finally arrives on Wakanda and simply laughs in our face as we try to shoot him. Just so you know, when shooting Thanos, the best way to get points with him is either the gems, which would earn you points in the subsequent order that he acquired them. So since he hasn't gotten the Mind Gem yet from Vision, the newest one he got was the Time Stone, so that would be worth the most points if you hit that. Another area of Thanos' body that would give a lot of points would be his head.
You should have gone for the head.
And then, of course, the least amount of points you can get from shooting at Thanos would be shooting directly at his chest. We would go through another straightaway path where Thanos and all the other Avengers are fighting each other, and we're shooting and trying to help. We then come face to face with a screen showing Thanos taking the Mind Stone out from Vision's head. But then, as we turn around and approach the corner, we see Thor come down and strike Thanos right in the chest, which, of course, as we know, is not enough to kill him, and Thanos snaps his fingers, thus wiping out half of the universe. The final scene of the ride, we actually see the cart that has been running on the opposite track. We see them through a mirror, and through the power of video effects and projections, it looks like the guests in the other cart are vanishing away. Right before we exit the ride, depending on which track you're on, Captain America or Iron Man would come on the screen and say, "Hey, you did a good job," or "You did a bad job," depending on how your cart did, point-wise. But ultimately, they would say it didn't matter because half the universe got wiped out anyways. So it's kind of a yikes. But it's all good because there's another movie, so it's all good. Speaking of which, depending on what happens in that movie, I may make another part to this ride to kind of finish off the story instead of having it end with half of the universe dying. But, I still think this is a pretty cool idea regardless. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.